Hello and welcome in, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. We are off to a great start already, as usual, in the most inefficient science lab in the history of the world. Not only did we start the show with COVID, but we have spilled a drink on my table. Off to a solid start. But we're going to try and get through it here, and we're going to do some sleepouts, breakers, and busts. And joining me today to do that is Jagger May. Jagger, thanks for joining me. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. Super excited. It's the
For a
time of year.
second, I thought your camera froze again, but you were just really still. I couldn't tell. It was awesome. You had me psyched out for a second. I'm like, oh no, he froze on me. Nope, just very still. So, would you like to take a second here before we get into it and tell everyone where they can find you and your work?
All of my written work is over at DLF, and then on top of that, I host a little podcast called Dynasty Hour. And right after this show, you can come see me on that one. And we talk every Wednesday. We're a pretty, I say lighthearted. I would just say that we're pretty degenerate, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Like if you want like a nice, not suitable for work Dynasty podcast, check us out.
Awesome. Sorry, that caught me off guard. I like it. All righty. All right, let's get into it then. Your first player is your sleeper. That would be Patriots tight end Mike Gesicki. Fantasy Pros has him projected for tight end 30, which seems pretty low. I didn't know there were 30 playable tight ends in the league, but apparently there are. No rushing stats projected, 35.2 receptions, 406.8 receiving yards, and 2.6 receiving touchdowns. I know Gesicki may not be a stud, but without researching, I would imagine that all three of those projections would be career lows for him. I'm not too sure, but that feels pretty low. What are your thoughts on Gesicki?
Granted, when I sent you this, training camp kind of just started, so like apparently he's not having the best camp. But again, it's training camp, and this is a new team for him. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like clearly with this offense, they want to run with the two tight end set. They want to run the ball quite often. So I can, even though Gesicki isn't the best blocker, he's still better than most slots. So I pretty much see him like being just a slot receiver, and it's kind of wide open outside of Juju Smith-Schuster and Devontae Parker. Granted, Hunter Henry I still really like, but I definitely think that there's meat on the bone for Gesicki to be that fourth guy and then maybe surpass Hunter Henry. So for the cost of where he's at right now, I'm willing to roll the dice and have him. So,
all right, give me a second and I will bring that cost up for you. We have the Fantasy Pros ADP on the screen. I've clicked on the wrong screen, so I can't adjust it. There we go. He is currently checking in at, I had it and I lost it. Where the heck is it? Oh, he's way down here. That's why. He's up to tight end 25 on Fantasy Pros, 182. So he's going pretty much near the end of your draft or undrafted, depending on where, or depending on how deep you go. There's not a whole lot this far down. Taysom Hill, Zach Ertz, who I don't think is going to play for most of the season. Dawson Knox, who looks to be the backup tight end. Hayden Hurst is just Hayden Hurst. Who knows with Musgrave, Henry? Like, I don't really want any of these guys. I don't mind Trey McBride, but once again, like I said, I'm banking on Zach Ertz missing significant time. What do you think of Gesicki and where he's valued right now, or at least where he is in ADP?
That whole range is what I call the doo-doo range. Like I messed up. I didn't get the two tight ends I wanted, so now I got to make something happen. So let's say if I'm at a turn or something, I would totally double dip and take Henry and Gesicki, or like you named the three that I want in that range: McBride, Hunter Henry, and Gesicki. Let's say that like I need a late round flyer, or I totally botched tight end in a draft, or got sniped or out drafted. This is that range. This is the oops. Hopefully one of these guys bail me out. You know, and like this is what I mean, a true sleeper, not a guy that everyone thinks is good, but he might not be good, but he's definitely worth stashing on your roster. And chances are you probably got someone else on your bench that you could probably swap out for a tight end, especially when we're looking for that positional upside. You know, like since we play in so many tight end premium formats now.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I have a few in the doo-doo range here. It's been a bad year for me at tight end. I've been drafting a lot on the turns, either the 1 or the 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't draft if you don't draft Kelsey at 1, which I haven't done, you don't get a shot at him when it comes back around. And then at the turn, the 1-2 turn, if you're not taking Mark Andrews, you're not going to get him again. And then even like I said, I've had a few times where I've been the 101. Kelsey and Andrews were gone. I didn't take one at the 2-3 turn. And by the time it got back to me in the 4-5 turn, Kittle, Goddard, Pitts, Waller were all gone. So
Yep.
I find that tight ends and quarterbacks are going ridiculously high this year, which pretty much everyone, projected. So I've been loading up kind of on wide receiver and running backs because of the value and just taking some of these doo-doo level guys later in the drafts. I don't know. Laporta, I have a few Dulcet, but like I said, that's quite a bit higher there. But at 182 overall, you can't really go wrong. It's a pick where even if you miss on it, you can afford to cut him and you don't lose anything.
Exactly. Like he costs nothing for you to get.
That's a cost I'm all right with. Next up, wrong one. Next up, we have your breakout. That would be Washington wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Fantasy Pros has him ranked 36 overall, wide receiver 36. Negligible rushing yards projected, 57.7 receptions, 820.4 receiving yards, and 6.2 receiving touchdowns. What is it that makes you think Dotson is going to break out this season?
This takes away nothing from Terry McLaurin, but I think this offense as a whole is going to go as far as either Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett are going to take them. Jahan Dotson, if you're a Matt Harmon disciple or whatever, he charts very well. He's an excellent separator. I even loved him since college, even though he wasn't that early breakout. For all you dynasty folks, like the guys who stay for 4 years, they don't always produce. This guy kind of popped early, and right now, like you said, wide receiver 36 range. You're getting a wide receiver 3 that has he's going to have some wide receiver 1 spike weeks in my opinion. And then 2, I think they got it projected pretty safe here on Fantasy Pros. I could see that being like more of like a 75 receptions and higher. And then I see him breaking 1,000 yards. Again, a lot of that is me relying on Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. But at the same time, Eric Bieniemy's there, and it can't be worse for that offense. Let's put it that way. So it's really just betting on talent and someone I think can be a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. And apparently in camp, he's showing out too. So we'll take confirmation bias wherever we can get it.
I have noticed that within a lot of these Fantasy Pros projections, as I struggle to find him on my, there he is. I've noticed the other day we were talking running backs and they went really conservative on the catches. I've noticed a lot of their projections seem to be kind of floor plays. So some of those stats might not have been all that accurate. Projections anyways. They have him currently ranked as wide receiver 40, which seems insanely low. 90th overall, so he still sneaks inside the top 100, but Fantasy Pros does not allow me to adjust the date. I assume if it did, and it was the last 2 weeks, Kadarius Toney would be much further down. I assume Jahan Dotson would be moved up, but
Burks would be down.
Yeah, Burks would be down. You're right. This range here, what do you think here? You think how far up you think he could go?
I think he could go right in that Deontay Johnson range, if not higher than that. Like maybe where you're at right now. Like that's where I think he could jump. And like I said, I think he's a wide receiver 3 that is going to be your wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 spike weeks, if that makes sense. If we're thinking about the range of outcomes of a player, which that's what I like to see. I don't like to say he has upside or whatever, or his floor. I think that ideally you're getting someone who's wide receiver 40, wide receiver 36, and he's probably going to end up being in points per game, top 24, and then he's going to win you a lot of weeks, or at least a couple of them. So I definitely see him jumping all those guys, even Marquise Brown. The only other one I just don't like betting against is Tyler Lockett, because that dude don't quit. So
Yeah.
I don't, that's like, if anything, probably ahead of Tyler Lockett, because I think Tyler Lockett's going to be ahead of wherever he's at. So where I start getting skeptical is a Brandon Ayuk, because Brandon Ayuk is someone I just released some wide receiver rankings. That's someone apparently I'm way higher on, ahead of
No,
consensus.
so am I. Yeah. The one, okay, so obviously Tony and Burks, I think, would be gone if this was more up to date through Fantasy Pros. The process we have with Pickens here, I don't understand. Do training camp hype videos mean that much? Like, okay, so you've got Pickens was a second rounder in the same class. Dotson was a first rounder. Both are on probably crappy offenses with crappy young quarterbacks. Why is Pickens going 7 picks earlier and 5 receivers ahead of Dotson? Give me Dotson all day. Like, I own Pickens in my work dynasty league. If I could go and trade him 1-for-1 for Jahan Dotson, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't
10 times out
understand
of
that.
10.
I don't
And
get
you're
it.
right. You're right. It is training camp hype or hype videos, because like I keep seeing the same thing. How many wide receivers can do this? And then they just show one video.
Cares? Do you play in a points per one-handed catch league? I don't, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make any sense to me, because
No.
there's more to an offense beyond that. And then on top of that, I I, I don't know, like Kenny Pickett, I guess I like more than Sam Howell, but I don't really like Sam
Yeah.
Howell. So like the quarterback situation's the same. I don't really get the Pickens hype, because there's so many indicators. Anyone who is either like a film guy, or if you're a numbers guy, everything says that Pickens isn't as good as ESPN says he is, and then a lot of people don't like to see it, and they keep telling me to watch the tape. And I said, yeah, I have. He's very good at jump balls, but everything else that gets you fantasy points, like consistently earning targets and getting open at a consistent rate, he just doesn't do it. So I don't know. Like, to me, he's the new Gabe Davis. So
I was in on him as a rookie. Like, he was my guy, but I just wrote an article today and he was one of the busts I have listed. And it just, I, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't quote the exact numbers, but he had back-to-back games early in the season with 8 targets. After, I think it was week 4 or 5 where he had those back-to-back games, he never had more than 6 targets in a single game and never had more than 5 catches. I don't get, like, he's going to make that one beautiful one-handed highlight reel catch, but I don't care. You can't do anything with 5 targets a game with where he's going, a top 100 pick. Give me Dotson all day.
yeah.
I don't understand it. Somehow that devolved into a George Pickens bashing session instead of a Jahan Dotson breakout session, but it happens.
Yeah, well, at least what happened is we're like, yeah, Jahan Dotson's good, and then we're like, what the hell? We're looking at these other names, and then
Yeah.
like to me, like that's the argument. Is like everyone who's going around or above them probably doesn't have the upside in their range of outcomes. I'm so happy this is a perfect transition, because another guy who I've
That's
heard about.
exactly what I was going to say, and we'll get into it. Your bust is Green Bay wide receiver Christian Watson. Fantasy Pros has him ranked 19, so a little bit ahead of Dotson. They have him projected for 66.6 rushing yards. That's ominous. 1 rushing touchdown, 69.6 receptions for 855.1 yards, and 6.1 receiving touchdowns. I will let you get into why you are out on him while I bring up the ADP. What are your thoughts?
I don't know what Jordan Love is. Like that's a big thing. And then on top of that, to me, it's almost like Christian Watson is the same but different than George Pickens. The way that he earns his money is not consistent or it's not sticky fantasy production. Like a lot of big plays. Let's say if he has any like a negative regression when it comes to his touchdowns, that's going to be a problem. I get that he's a very physical receiver, physically gifted receiver. He's fast, he's a burner, but it's in the same sense as George Pickens. he's not a great route runner, and I don't know if that's going to earn him a lot of targets. And again, with Jordan Love running that offense, are we going to expect him to be Devontae Adams? I don't think so. So it's just, especially for the price that you're paying for him, because he barely made top 24, and that is me giving him the respect that he did produce and is young and can get better. But he's not. He's in that range of players where I'd rather trade back and get someone else for more assets, or trade up with more assets and tier up, if that makes sense. Like if I have Christian Watson, I want to package up and get someone like depending on who has Brandon Ayuk, or if I can get Devontae Smith or something like that, that's where I'd rather go. He's in a no-fly zone for me.
Yeah, so he's going as wide receiver 22, 57 overall. And we compare that back to who we were talking about in Jahan Dotson, who's going 90th overall. So it's at 33 picks later. I don't know if I would. I own Watson in that same dynasty league I was talking about. I don't know if I would trade Watson straight up for Jahan Dotson, just because the perceived value is so much higher. I think what I would do, I might do this right after the show. I might send an offer of Watson for Dotson and a pick, knowing that I'd probably take the deal straight up, and I just want to take the pick to be greedy. But I don't know. Like, do you think you'd go as far as to say you'd take Jahan Dotson over Christian Watson, or not that far?
100%. I've done it multiple times. Like even in redraft, I've picked Dotson over Watson several times, and a lot of it's philosophy. And until at least right now, where the NFL is, like the NFL changes every 5 years or so. I think that these route runners and craftsmen are more effective at getting open and earning targets in today's modern NFL. So I'm always going to bet on them. If you're a solid route runner that can consistently get open in short areas all over the field, and like your reception perception is green, I'm going to want you 10 times out of 10. We just don't like it's hard to play in this league and just be a pure athlete. You know, if that would happen, a lot of guys that we expected to pop would have popped. Like DK Metcalf is one of the few pure athletes who just make it, you know,
or they become tight ends. That's what happens. But
exactly.
I look at the range here of the 5 or so above him and 5 below him, and it's just a case of like one of these things is not like the others. I get it. Like I have him in a couple of my leagues, and I made big trades to get him. I just don't get how he's this high up in the rankings. We've seen a 4-game stretch where he put up 7 touchdowns and did nothing else. I don't get how he could be this high. How far down do you think you could scroll? You can see the names, right? Yep.
Yeah, like pretty much
how far down. How far down before you say stop? I'd rather him than further down.
Yeah, like really right at Dotson, because like I'd rather have JSN. I'd rather have probably Addison plus. Let's say if I
exclude Burks and Tony, obviously, but
but if I can get Addison plus, smash. Don't care about Pickens or Evans. Burks, that's a wash to me. But yeah, right about there at that Jahan Dotson range.
It seems to really fall off at Brandon Cooks here.
Yeah.
Even Quentin Johnston in a first or a pick I would take, but I'm the Quentin Johnston guy, so maybe that's just me.
I've come around on Quentin Johnston. Like I was a hater, and then like again, people get better, and a lot of people are giving like us film guys a lot of crap because they're like, well, he's a body catcher in every training camp video. He's reaching for the ball, but again, like the tape, he didn't do it in college. If he's doing it now, great. I'm in. I'm 100% in. So like Quentin Johnston plus, I take that too. But those are like really at that range that's where it stops. But it astounded me that like Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, some other guys that I would just rather have over Christian Watson. It astounds me. So
my problem with Johnston, like I really loved all his athleticism and all his traits and everything. My problem with him wasn't necessarily the hand catching. He's a god-awful route runner. I hope he can find a way to work that out, but that was the biggest reason I got down on him. At one point, I had him as my wide receiver 1 in the class, but the route running's terrible, and then you added in the hands, and it wasn't as good. But I definitely have a much better view here of Dotson now, and I might go try and acquire him for Christian Watson and see if I can get something with it. So would you like to once again tell everyone where they can find you and your work?
Again, find me over at DLF, and then check us out at Dynasty Hour. You can just check us out on Twitter. I have that in my name here at Fantasy Blue Chip. And yeah, man, I'm on Twitter all the time, so you've probably seen me before at some point talking crap or arguing, or making memes. So
I have seen you on Twitter and I've seen you on YouTube. There are so many people at DLF. I didn't notice till I clicked on your bio. I'm like, oh, he writes for DLF too. I didn't even know. There's so many people where I'm just like, oh, where do you write for? Or who do you write for? And they're like, DLF. And I'm like, oh, me too. I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like 500 of us writing there, and there's never enough work to go around. So it's kind of funny.
Yep. And I'm a group chat lurker. I never say anything, but I'm always there. So
yeah, me too. I'm always in the chat, but I rarely comment unless I really need something. I mute most of them, especially during, as we get geared up into draft season. I get sick of listening to the, hey, who do you guys like in this? Or what do you guys think of this player? It's like, oh, leave me alone, man. I don't want to do this right now. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. It was great to have you on. This has been Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts with Jagger May. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thank you, Jagger, for joining me once again, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Take care and have a great night.